What's up guys, and welcome back to Move Plus. Our workout today is going to have 4 sections to it. The first one we're going to work through is just the warm-up, so that is really just getting ourselves ready for the rest of the workout. So a little bit of general movement, a little bit of increasing of the heart rate. From there we'll go into the build section, which is going to be on the shorter side today. It's 6 minutes and we're going to be working with some dead bugs and some push-ups. From there we go to the move section, which is going to have 2 6-minute AMRAP, so we'll have a look at that a little bit more in depth when we get there. And then we have the finisher, which is a little bit of direct arm work. So once that's all done, we'll mobilize and cool down. We're gonna kick things off with 1 minute of cardio of your choice. We're gonna go with a scissor jump today. So that is kind of like a shallow jump lunge. Okay, and just going back and forth on that for the minute. We then go into the following 4 minutes to do as many rounds as we can fit in of 12 jumping jacks into 12 lunges, and then into 12 glute bridges. And that will just be on repeat for those remaining 4 minutes. Good to go, Em?
Yep.
All right, so starting in 10. So 1 minute of cardio of choice straight out of the gates. And go for it. So good to pick nice, simple things, guys, especially for this first minute. We just want to get the heart rate to start to climb a little bit. This is nice and simple and doesn't obviously require any equipment or much space either. All we're doing is just jumping the feet back and forth. Now, you can obviously start even smaller than what Em's doing there and just basically just do a little shuffle with the feet and then start to open that up to a bigger and bigger movement, and you can go deeper and deeper as the legs feel like they're ready for it. But as I said, it's a shallow jump lunge. It's not a full depth one where we would go knee to ground. This is more about just kind of springing back and forth, getting those legs nice and warmed up and getting that heart rate up. Now, in about 20 seconds, we're going to move to that second part of the warm-up, which is going to be an AMRAP, so as many rounds as possible. 12 jumping jacks, 12 lunges, 12 glute bridges, and that's just going to be on repeat. Okay, 10 seconds. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So jumping jacks now. Going from one movement plane to another, going a little bit more lateral now. So this is going to be good just to kind of warm up the hips really well. 12 reps on that, then moves to 12 lunges. So this is kind of a similar movement to what we did in that cardio minute. Obviously this is a little more slow and controlled. Obviously the range of motion is bigger. And we've got that idea of like moving the feet back and forth, back to kind of a base point there. You want to think about getting your knee to just gently contact the ground. So if you are doing this maybe outside or on some unforgiving floor, guys, get a yoga mat or a towel down under the knee, or if you happen to own knee sleeves, they work well as well. Once we get to 12, we're going to take it down to the ground and go into those glute bridges. So Em's setting up with the feet about hips width apart. Knees are going to be a similar kind of distance. And then from there, she's basically bridging that hip position up to the point where the knees, hips, and shoulders are in one straight line. So there shouldn't be any part of her upper back on the ground. It should be right up onto her shoulders. And you notice she's doing almost like a little half a second pause at the top there. It's a nice controlled cadence. So these warm-ups don't generally just have to be about heart rate. We want to think about muscle activation as well. So sometimes slower and more controlled is going to work well too. Swing back around into this second round. So with the jumping jack, guys, looking at the arms, we're going to go from basically from thighs up to a contact overhead and try to make those arms as long as you can. And one really important thing with any kind of lunge that we do, guys, is the foot that is out in front. We want to keep the heel connected to the ground and basically keep all the weight and the pressure that we're pushing through that leg in that heel. If you find that it shifts a lot up to the toes and that heel even starts to lift up, I'm going to try and sit on that rear leg a little bit more, even that pressure out and get that heel locked down. That way we get a really good recruitment of rear chain muscle, so hamstrings, glutes, that sort of thing, and we're not overloading the knee. And this is another one that's going to get into that rear chain, so again, hamstrings, glutes. I'm going to think about contracting them, also thinking about your abs getting involved too. So I always like to think when I'm doing this exercise that at the top I could have someone like stand on my belly. Okay, I'm going to really bridge and get nice and hard through there. We don't want to be loose or feeling like we're kind of pushing the belly out. We want to stay nice and braced. So inside the last 90 seconds now, we'll sneak in one more round, or at least part of it. So by this stage of the warm-up, guys, if you're feeling good, you can feel free to kind of crank the intensity up a little bit. Obviously, we wanted to take that first minute just to kind of ease into things. Now that the body's sort of loose, the heart rate's up, we can start to push that intensity a little bit. 1 more minute. So this is another one of those movements, guys. There is a good idea to have maybe a yoga mat or a towel, or if you happen to own a gym mat of some sort. Just a little bit of padding under the shoulders there goes a long way. You'll notice that Em's not allowing her knees to collapse in, so that's part of that glute activation. It's just keeping a very strict knee position there. She's not letting them wobble or move wherever they want. Okay, last couple of jumping jacks. 3, 2, 1, and done. All right, so that is the warm-up done, guys. Take a little bit of recovery time. We're gonna check out build next. Alrighty, guys, we're gonna check out the build workout now. So this one is 6 minutes long and it's an alternating EMOM. So what we're gonna see in minute 1 is dead bug. So it's gonna look like this. Basically extending opposite limbs whilst maintaining a nice neutral torso. We do that for 50 seconds on, 10 seconds off. We then go to minute 2, which is going to be hand release push-ups. Okay, so our normal push-ups, but with a little bit of a removal of the hands at the bottom there, and then driving back up again. Again, we'll do that for 50 seconds on, 10 seconds off, and this is a 6 minute in total, okay? Good to go? Yep. All right. Okay, going in 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So guys, what we want to think about with this particular movement, this dead bug, is creating length through the body, right? We're trying to reach both limbs, so it's going to be right hand with left leg and then left hand with right leg as long as we can. Now the challenge to this is when you do that, the body, especially the torso through the middle here, through your abdomen and your low back, is going to want to kind of change shape. We're trying to keep it braced in the one position. So we're thinking about drawing that belly button to spine, okay? Trying to maintain whatever spinal shape we're in a neutral position, okay? And holding it there rather than it's feeling like our ribs are flaring up or the pelvis is rolling anywhere. 10 more seconds. So whilst the limbs are out, the other limbs are gonna just hold in the middle. And resting. All right, so we're gonna turn it over into the hand release push-ups. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So looking at the setup here, guys, feet are reasonably close, hands are reasonably close as well. We want to have that nice kind of neutral pressing position, not out wide like this. We want to minimize any wear and tear on the shoulders there. Now you'll notice the defining factor of this as compared to a regular push-up is that she has that hand release at the bottom. So it's important that we know that at the bottom, although the arms are going to disengage from that contact on the ground, the body's going to stay tight, okay? Just because we've stopped on the ground doesn't mean we get to relax or anything like that. We want to be resting on those pecs or just on the kind of the rib cage area. We want to feel like our thighs, hips, and stomach are just slightly off the ground or just hovering, kind of lightly touching it, but not loading onto the ground at all. So 5 more seconds. And resting. All right, so we'll switch back to the dead bug. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So nice, slow, controlled tempo is good with this one, guys. Often in these workouts, it is kind of instinctive to try and push as much speed and intensity as possible. Intensity can come in many forms, and what we're looking at here is trying to have really good time under tension and really good smoothness of movement. If she's just kind of throwing the limbs back and forth all over the place, she's not going to have that really nice control that we're after. So moving at a speed like this is going to allow her to really think about what her trunk is doing and thinking about the relationship between her rib cage and her pelvis. Are those two things moving and changing shape, or are they in a nice fixed locked in position? 10 more seconds. And resting. 3, 2, 1. Now we'll have a look at this hand release push-up. We're going to go from the knees this time. So if you want to go the scaled version. So this is something you can do, guys. You can still maintain that hand release, keep the challenge of that going on, but we can work from the knees to shorten the lever length, and this can allow you to get a little bit more volume out, or if you just can't get them on the toes at all, this is your go-to. Okay, we can also work on an elevated front end if you're doing this at home, maybe on the edge of the couch, or if you've got a chair that's the right kind of shape or width, you can work with that. Just make sure it's nice and safe, nice and stable. So this can be a good tool to allow Emily to concentrate on keeping tension and coordinating that hand release. 10 more seconds. So it's a lot of keeping your butt and your abs tight through that midsection. And resting. So one more cycle through each. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. And one of the challenging things with these movements where we're bracing, it's almost like a semi-static movement, right? We've got limbs moving, but the torso is it's almost like a plank hold. We're trying to hold that in one position in a static spot, trying to breathe through that process, right? We don't want to hold our breath for a full 50 seconds. We want to keep that oxygen coming in. So the trick is bracing, but just doing short little breaths along the way and just getting that oxygen in small amounts, but make sure we're not holding our breath the entire time. And resting. All right, so one more of the hand release push-ups. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. Now, something to watch out for with this, a very common mistake I mentioned before about the stomach, hips, and thighs kind of loading on the ground or stopping on the ground. We don't want that to happen, and a dead giveaway is if your knees are kind of lifting later than the rest of you, like everything else is up and then your knees are kind of coming off the ground last, try to flex your quads so that you know that those legs are up off the ground. We have our rib cage on the floor in that hand release position, but we're not going to let the legs take any of the body weight. Okay, last 15 seconds. And time. All right, so that is the build section done, guys. Have a little bit of recovery time, get some water in. We're going to check out move next. Okay, so we're going to have a look at the move workout now, guys. This one has 2 parts to it. So we're going to be working for 6 minutes, resting for 1, and then working for another 6 minutes. And both of those sections are going to be AMRAP, so just doing as much work as you can fit in. In section 1, what we have is 10 quad heel taps. So that's going to look like this. So like a bear crawl position, opposite limbs touching, okay? We then go into 10 alternating snatches. So with our dumbbell or whatever weighted object you have, changing from right to left. We then move into 1 minute on double unders. So with our skipping rope, moving through those double unders, okay? So we do that for 6 minutes. We have our 1 minute off. We then move into the second section, which is going to be almost the same, except the only difference is instead of the snatches, we're going to do Russian twists. So that's going to set up in kind of a V-sit position, going back and forth with the weight if you can, or just hands if you need to do that. The other movements will be the same, so it'll still be 10 quad heel taps into the Russian twist and then into the minute of double unders. Good to go? All right, starting in 10 with the quad heel taps for 10 reps. Going in 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So, starting off on this movement, guys, we want to try and get into the habit early of keeping the torso really, really still. So this is one of those control pieces. The limbs are going to move, but we're trying to keep the body as controlled as possible. So imagine it like a tabletop. Imagine you're trying to balance something on your back and not move around. That's how we want to approach that one. Now, as we move to the dumbbell snatch, most important thing here is keeping your back nice and straight. So we don't want to have any rounding over as we come down to the ground. It's a nice hip hinging pattern, so kind of almost like a sumo deadlift going down between the middle of the legs, and then an aggressive hip extension into a shrug, and then that arm is just going to follow that dumbbell up into a lockout. So 10 reps on that, And then we're gonna hit the minute on the double unders. So we'll call it from 50. We'll go through to the 1 minute 50 marker. So a good thing to do with double unders, guys, is try to listen to the sound of the rope, listen to the sound of your feet, and start to ingrain that pattern or that cadence of the noise into your head, and that way you can get into a really good rhythm. It's very easy to start picking up when you're getting out of sync with it because the sound will just sound quite funny. Positioning wise, we're looking at keeping the shoulders just in a nice kind of relaxed position down, elbows slightly tucked into the ribs there. And then it's just a little flick at the wrist. It's not a big bicep curling or like wheeling over the shoulders or elbows. We're just looking at getting a little bit of a flick or a double flick as we jump. 5 seconds. Alrighty, so we'll move back to the quad heel taps. So when we set up for this, guys, it's really important that the leg that's staying still is going to just keep the knee a couple of inches off the ground. So we're deliberately staying low. So it's like a bear crawl position, but we're going to have the hips and knees much lower to the ground. So that is going to put a bit of a burn on the legs. It's all part of the fun. And then the feet and the hands are going to be about a shoulder width apart. Okay, and that's the setup for that one. As we move through the snatch, we want to think about getting both heads of the dumbbell to touch the ground, not just the front one. That's something we'll do if we're doing double dumbbell deadlifts or cleans. This one, we have to go a little bit deeper and get that full ground touch on both heads. Make sure we get that nice stand up at the top there, so we don't want to drop the dumbbell too soon. We want to make sure we've stood to lock out. All right. So we'll go from the 50 again. I think that'll match up nicely. And go for it. Now, something you'll notice that Em's not doing, and this is quite a common mistake we see with people doing double unders, is a big tuck at the hips. Obviously, if you've gone from learning single unders into double unders, we've got to be spending a little bit more time in the air to get that double rope pass. So often we'll see people tucking the knees up to create a bigger window for the rope to come through. What we really want to do is try and maintain the same upright position, but just jump higher. So put a little bit more effort into that explosive rebound off the ground and try and keep the body nice and straight like Em is there. Now that being said, there's always a little bit of bend at hips and knees, but it's very minor. It's more just kind of a cushioning effect. If you find yourself doing like big tuck jumps, we want to try and straighten that out a little bit more. Okay, about 10 more seconds. And back to the quad heel taps. So if you're moving through these quad heel taps, guys, and you're not sure, am I going too fast? Am I a little bit unsteady on this? Grab like a couch cushion or a pillow or something, put it on your low back, and work on balancing that with that there. It's a pretty quick indicator. If you're swaying a lot side to side, it will fall off fairly quickly. So you can use that as a little bit of a check-in to see if you're keeping that nice stable position. Nice work, Em, that's good. All right, we'll go from the 45 and go for it. So about to roll into the last minute now, guys. Remember, we've got that 1 minute break coming up, so this is where you want to really push the tempo. So with something like double unders, guys, good to take little strategic breaks every now and then. That versus just going until you completely blow up, okay? And then you're not going to be able to get the next set going. So sometimes doing just a short burst, quick rest, short burst, quick rest will actually end up getting you through it faster and getting more volume out. 15 more seconds. Back down to the quad heel taps for last couple of reps. 3, 2, 1, and done. All right, so we have a 1 minute break here, guys. Go and grab some water, have a bit of a chill, stretch out anything that's getting tight, and then we're gonna recommence in a moment into that second 6 minute AMRAP. Okay, 30 seconds, so we're looking at same movements. We've still got 10 quad heel taps. The only difference here is going to be going into the second movement, which is Russian twists for 10. And then we have the same 1 minute of double unders. Ten seconds. So we'll be going for another 6 minutes on this one. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. If we look at Em's shoulders as she does this, guys, she's nice and active on the arm that is taking the weight, so not the one reaching for the foot, but the one that's on the ground. It's pressing forward, it's kind of pushing the ground away, make sure it stays stable. What we don't want to do is slouch or have the body kind of twisting as that arm reaches down. You should be able to just move from the shoulder rather than reaching the whole body. This Russian twist is the new movement in the second section, guys. You want to keep that one fairly controlled as well. It's not one we want to blitz through or bounce the weight off the ground. All right, we'll go from 40 and go for it. Now, if you don't happen to have double unders, guys, what you can do is work with single unders, okay? If you're a little newer to this, just develop that skipping, okay? Build up some endurance in the calves, build the timing, that sort of stuff. If you don't happen to have a skipping rope, things like penguin taps where we're just tapping the hips on the jump are good too. The beauty of this workout is that it's a minute either way, so even if you maybe say you can do double unders but you're just not crash hot at them, you're going to get saved by the bell either way. So even if it's just kind of stuttering through it, that's the best way to learn them, is just keep at it, keep at it. Just power of numbers, just keep building that volume. Ten more seconds. And back to the quad heel taps for 10. And when you get tired with this, guys, obviously we're in the second section now, that fatigue's starting to build. What you'll find is your body will want to creep those knees higher and higher off the ground and push your butt up to the roof. You'll also find yourself kind of sinking back behind your hands, like pressing almost into a shoulder press. Try to keep yourself low, try to keep your chest over your hands. Don't allow that body to sneak its way into an easier position. We want to make it work and challenge it. Now with this position here, guys, a little bit of bend in the legs, feet are held together so they're not crossed over. We don't want one leg supporting the other one. We want them both working equally. And you can see that the entire upper torso is rotating. So head, shoulders, dumbbell, rib cage, everything together. And we get that nice kind of corkscrew motion through the midsection. All right, we'll go from 30. And go for it. Twenty more seconds. And coming out of that, going into the quad heel taps again. So if you haven't done this one before, guys, you want to just move slowly as you take the hand down to the foot. So what you'll find is the balance will be a little rocky. So it's about giving the body just that moment to kind of steady itself. Okay, again, we can see this nice upper body rotation. She's not just moving the arms from side to side. It's really important that the whole rib cage, the whole upper torso is rotating from that midsection. I mentioned before in the brief, guys, you can do that without a weight, and that would just be touching hand to ground rather than a weight. Okay, we'll go from 25 and go for it. Be conscious as you're skipping, guys, if you feel your arms kind of slowly creeping out wider and wider, okay? Might be something your body's thinking is gonna feel like a more comfortable position, but you're just gonna be burning on those shoulders. You wanna keep it in nice and close, keep it efficient. Three, 2, 1. All right, coming out of that, going into the quad heel taps again. We've got 30 seconds left on the timer. We're not gonna allow that to rush us though. Remember, these are gonna be nice controlled movements. The double unders is where you can really hit the speed. These ones are gonna be much more about balance and control. Nice, all right, moving to the Russian twists. Another thing you can do with this one if you're wanting to scale it, guys, is having your feet on the ground, although we still want to have that little bit of lean back at the torso. And time. All right, that is the move workout done, guys. Have a little bit of a chill. We've got the finisher coming up next. All right, guys, so last piece to today's workout is the finisher. We're looking at some direct arm work. What we're gonna do is hammer curls as movement 1, which is gonna look like this. Okay, and then we're gonna do a seesaw upright row, which is gonna look like this. And what's gonna happen is we're gonna do 20 seconds of one with a 10-second rest, then 20 seconds of the other and another 10-second rest, and we do that for 5 full cycles. So this will be going for 5 minutes. Good to go, Em?
Yep.
All right, starting in 10. So you can put the dumbbells down in between sets here, guys, or you can hang on to them. That is up to you. And go for it. So looking at the setup here, guys, everything in the body stays completely still except from the elbow down. So we're really wanting to make sure that the hips don't start rocking on this. It is a very strict controlled movement. We're doing 20 seconds either way each time, guys, so you want to make sure that the tempo is nice and smooth and not rushed. And resting. So 10-second rest. From here we move to the seesaw upright row. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So with this one, we're going from basically like your thighs or in front of your pockets there up to your collarbone. And really important that at the peak of the movement, the elbow is going to be above the height of that dumbbell. And resting. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. Now you'll notice that the hand position is a particular way, guys. That is the hammer part of the name, the hammer curls. It's a neutral position, so that as opposed to like a palms forward position. Just gonna hit the arms a little bit differently. It's usually a little more comfortable as well, which is good. And just coming up to about shoulder height. We don't need to go too high with these. And resting. Three, 2, 1, and go for it. So this movement, like the hammer curls, is a strict, smooth one, guys. So don't rush through it, get all crazy with it. Don't start letting your hips get involved. It's just body nice and still, and it's just the arms moving. And resting. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So I mentioned before, guys, the shoulders is about the top point of this, and the reason we do that is because we want to keep the upper arm glued to the side of the body. We don't want that elbow creeping forward, which is what happens if we go right up and over the shoulder. So you should end up with your hands kind of almost at the side of your pecs there, and that's going to isolate that muscle really well. Resting. Okay, so pass halfway. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. Now, if you happen to be a little tight through the shoulders, guys, and you find it really hard to get that elbow up above the height of the dumbbell at collarbone height, just pull to a little bit lower. Prioritize the elbow being above the hand versus the dumbbell getting really high and getting into a weird kind of reverse curl position. And resting. So 2 more minutes to go. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. I always like to think about getting the shoulder blades back as well. So think about your posture in this. Sometimes when we get tired, the shoulders can start to kind of curl down and roll downwards. We want to try and keep everything open and back as much as possible. And resting. Three, 2, 1, and go. Good. That's looking good, Em. Nice. And resting. So about to roll into the final minute of this, guys. Remember to just keep the tempo slow. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So we're thinking about time under tension versus total reps. And resting. Okay, about to roll into the final block of work. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So similar to the bicep curls, guys, with this one, shoulder blades back a little bit, be nice and active through there, don't let yourself get rolled internally. And resting. All right, guys, so that is the finisher done. Grab yourself some water, have a little recovery time. We're gonna get into a cool down next. All right, guys, so we're gonna go through a little bit of cool down work now. The first drill we're gonna do is what we call dragon. So we're going to a nice long lunge setup, opposite hand to ground, and then from there, we're basically reaching in and reaching out. We'll do this for 45 seconds, so we'll chuck a timer on there. We'll do this on each side, obviously. So trick with this one is you wanna set the lunge up with a longer position than our normal lunge. So if I was doing, say, dumbbell lunges or kettlebell lunges, something like that, I want it to be a more exaggerated position so that I can get into all like the hamstrings, the hip flexors, the quads, the whole deal, get that nice and loosened up. And then we also have this added piece of the arm reaching in and reaching out. Just gonna get some nice kind of rotation through the upper torso there, open up through the chest, all of those things. So nice and slow as Em's doing there, a little bit of a pause at end range each time. And switching. So the long game of this one, guys, not necessarily to do it today, but over time, we're gonna try and work our way down like Em's doing, getting her elbow to the ground. So that can take a little time to build up to, but that's ultimately where we wanna get to with this. It helps that you drive that knee out to the side. You can see Em's really flaring it out the same way we would for like a squat or a sumo deadlift. That's gonna give her some space to allow that body to come through and get that elbow touch. Alrighty, so that's our first drill, guys. The second one we're gonna do is down dog. So we're gonna set up hands and feet, and then we're going to basically hinge at the hips. So we'll do this one for a minute, and basically just pushing back on those hamstrings, driving the head through, basically trying to make like an upside down L shape. Now, depending on your flexibility level, that'll kind of decide how deep you can get back into this. But ultimately the goal is to get where M is there, where it's basically like a 90-degree bend at the hips. Something you can do to kind of help if you are a bit tight is going wider with the stance or even wider with the hands, and that will just give you a little bit more freedom to come through a little bit more. Or you can work with your hands elevated at the front end, so put them on the edge of a step, or if the couch is the right height, that sort of thing, you can push back from there. But basically just trying to free up your hamstrings. You'll get a little bit of calves as well. You can see M kind of playing around with a little bit of ankle switch work there too. And then we're also looking at kind of lats and shoulders in that press out position. 3, 2, 1, and done. All right, so those are our 2 drills, guys. If you've got time, let's go through 3 or 4 rounds of them, really loosen the body up. Otherwise, we will catch you next time. That's been your MOV+ workout.